Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or The Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be breaking down my quarterback start or sit decisions for every single matchup of week number 2. We're going to be going in depth through Thursday Night Football all the way up until Monday Night Football, and I'll be telling you guys whether I think you should start or sit the quarterbacks in all of those games. But before we could get into things, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. So without further ado, let's get into my week number 2 quarterback start or sit decisions for the 2024 fantasy football season. We begin with Thursday Night Football. No one circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills at my Miami Dolphins in the 305. So Josh Allen suffered a left hand injury in week 1 up against the Arizona Cardinals, but lucky for us, unlike Tua, Josh Allen is a righty, so it won't have much of an effect on the game, if any effect at all. If it was his right hand, then I would be running from the hills away from Josh Allen. I would be pretty nervous, but frankly, since it's his left hand, I wouldn't worry at all. Since Josh Allen prototypically beats the Dolphins with a lock and a sock, I fully do expect him to have a huge performance. Now, as a Dolphins fan, I am hoping that he absolutely shits down the leg of his pants and has a terrible performance. But I know ultimately what's coming. This dude had 4 total touchdowns up against the Cardinals, 2 passing and 2 running, including one where he hurdled a dude. So I'm fully prepared for him to go nuclear in this spot. He is definitely a top 5 quarterback on the week. Tua Tagovailoa was the quarterback 9 last week, and it was a tale of 2 halves for Tua Tagovailoa and the Dolphins as a whole. In the first half, Tua and the Dolphins were completely and utterly limp dick in a need of Viagra, right? They needed that Viagra, they needed the Cialis, and then in the locker room, I guess, entering into the second half, they took that because they came out guns a-blazing in the second half. We also did see Tua have a nice shifty run in that game, and I do genuinely believe that we are going to be seeing more of Tua running. Now, obviously, he's not going to go out there like Kyler Murray, juke a dude out of his shoes, or like Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, but maybe 2 or 3 rushes a game compared to the normal 0, since he did drop some weight and looks a lot more shifty. Now, Tua normally isn't the best up against the Buffalo Bills, but I also do believe that the Bills defense is a lot different compared to years prior, as they are banged up and did a big reshuffling of the defense. I am not really expecting the best, but I do think he should end up being a top 12 quarterback up against the Buffalo Bills defense. The sponsor of today's video is Underdog Fantasy. You guys will receive a free pick of Josh Allen higher than half of a total yard if you're a first-time depositor using promo code Notorious to claim your free pick plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash. If you click on the link in the video description or use promo code Notorious, you will get a free pick like Josh Allen higher than half of a total yard. You match that with one other pick from the Dolphins or any of the games on Sunday or Monday, and you'll receive 3 times what you put into your pick'em entry. Again, promo code Notorious, or click on the link in the video description. So game number 2, we start off on Sunday with the New Orleans Saints going up against the Dallas Cowboys. Now, Dak Prescott didn't look great up against the Cleveland Browns defense last week, but I do believe that a bounce back is in order for Mr. Dakota. With CeeDee Lamb getting back into stride, I do think he should end up having a low-end quarterback 1 performance on the week. Now, the Saints defense looked rock solid up against the Carolina Panthers last week, but I think that's more of a tell that the Carolina Panthers are just a complete and utter dumpster fire offensively, and less of a tell that the Saints have one of the best defenses in the NFL. Derek Carr last week was surgical. He cut through that Panthers defense like his name was O.J. Simpson. Now, up against a much stronger defense, I expect a true come down to earth moment for DC, and with him having that come down to earth moment, it might be quarterback 24 or worse. I am personally hoping that Carr has actually turned back the clock, hopped in the DeLorean, changed the time back, and he's going to end up being a solid, competent NFL quarterback unlike last season. But ultimately, up against the Dallas Cowboys defense, there is absolutely no reason to start him. Next up, we move to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Detroit Lions. Both Baker Mayfield and Jared Goff are going to be starts for me on this game. Now, Baker Mayfield was the quarterback 2 last week up against the Commanders, and this matchup has all of the makings of being a back and forth affair. One of those fights like Sean Strickland versus Dricus du Plessis, where it's a back and forth nail razor matchup where it's super duper close, super high scoring, and super fun to watch. I highly doubt he throws for 4 touchdowns like he did up against the Commanders, where he was the quarterback 2 last week, because the Commanders defense is just absolutely terrible. But I think at minimum, he'll be a high-end quarterback 2, meaning like the quarterback 14, 15, or 13. So I think he's going to have a solid game, and he has that upside of being a top 10 quarterback. So he's definitely going to be a start. Jared Goff had a pretty mid showing up against the LA Rams on Monday Night Football, or Sunday Night Football, I apologize. But I do think he bounces back as a top 12 quarterback this week. Again, I really do believe this has the makings of being a high-scoring back and forth affair. Goff is a very low-risk option weekly, and in good matchups like this, he could definitely cook up a top 8 game. Next up, we move to the Indianapolis Colts at the Green Bay Packers. Now, despite the fact that Anthony Richardson only had 9 completions against the Houston Texans, this man threw for 2 missiles for touchdowns and ran 1 in. So 3 touchdowns in that game. And Anthony Richardson looked just like I said he was going to look in the summer. When the guy is healthy, he is dominant, 50 Shades of Grey style chains and whips. The guy is straight up amazing. He is unstoppable in fantasy football. Now, is Anthony Richardson one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL? No, but in fantasy football, where rushing upside is king, Anthony Richardson is amazing. He could easily be a top 3 quarterback in any given game, and I expect him to have yet another huge performance up against a Packers defense that got bent over a table by the Philadelphia Eagles last week in Brazil. Malik Willis is going to be a sit. Now, maybe Matt LaFleur is going to be in the lab like Dexter, and he's going to be able to cure everything that's wrong with Malik Willis. He's going to figure out how to make Malik Willis not a straight-up bum. But everything I have seen out of Malik Willis in his career thus far tells me that he isn't very good. Now, he could luck box into a decent fantasy performance from his rushing upside, and I think he's going to run a lot in this game like a chicken with his head cut off, so he could be fine, but ultimately, I would not want to chance that. Next up, we move to the San Francisco 49ers at the cold like Minnesota Vikings. Now, mono man Sam Darnold looked great up against the Giants, but this is a completely different beast. The Giants defense can't stop a nosebleed, and the San Francisco 49ers defense had Aaron Rodgers locked in a box, and they threw away the key. While this is a revenge game for Sam Darnold, being a former San Francisco 49ers quarterback, you can't reasonably start Darnold up against a rock-hard 49ers D. Pause. For Brock Purdy, horsecock Brock passed the eye test on Monday Night Football up against the Jets defense. But while he did pass the eye test, his fantasy football output reeked to high heaven. I think the touchdowns come more in this game. I mean, he did hit Brandon Ayuk, who should have caught the ball, but he didn't bring it in, which sucked. Brock would have had a better game. It's not like that one touchdown would have turned him from being not so hot into this top 5 quarterback, but would have been a lot better. Maybe you lost your week because Brandon Ayuk has no fucking hands, but I do think going forward, the connection, his gel with his teammates will be a lot better. They're going to see a whole lot of Jordan Mason in this game, as I do not believe Christian McCaffrey will play with his Achilles tendonitis. The Madden curse got him good already, and I believe that Brock Purdy will be a top 12 quarterback this week. I get the Vikings defense looked incredible against the Giants, and I do think Brian Flores will make the best with not the best talent defensively, but ultimately, I don't think the Vikings defense is a team that puts fear into my eyes if I had Brock Purdy. Next up, we move to the New York Jumbo Jets at the Tennessee Titans. Now, this should be a bounce-back performance for Mr. State Farm, Mr. Discount Double Check, Ron Rodgers. But, and this is a big but, shout out Violet Myers, I do think that the Titans defense might actually be low-key good. Now, the talk all week long in these videos have been, hey, don't overreact to week one. Week one lies all the time. Week one last year, Hunter Henry was the tight end one. A bunch of other tight ends were straight up dookie. And then obviously Hunter Henry was nowhere to be found in the top 12 rankings at tight end by the end of the season. So week one is a little bit fugazi. It's a wazi. It's a woozy. So I wouldn't completely jump ship on Rodgers. And I also won't sit here and glaze the Titans defense. But I do think based upon what I saw last week, they might be better than I perceived and better than most perceived. So I'd rather just watch Aaron Rodgers potentially cook up a masterpiece of a game here on my bench over starting him and risk what happened last week. And plus, maybe Caleb Williams just had a rough going in game one, which I think is possible. But again, I think that Titans defense is good and will keep them in games. Will Levis throwing that game-losing interception and then falling down to his knees while the ball is like midair. He threw it, came out of his hand, and he was like, fuck, that's a pick. He instantly knew he sold a game, and that was honestly one of the funniest things I've ever seen on the NFL gridiron. I think that might be the funniest moment of the year, and I know only the first week of games happened, but I really do think that's going to be one of the funniest moments we look back on from the year. I have also done that exact move when Tua threw the ball, and I knew it would be a pick just watching Dolphins games before, so I'm not going to judge him, but it was very funny. I think Levis is going to just be one of those guys that magically pulls a rabbit out of a hat every once in a while, has a few big games, but up against the Jets defense, there is no chance I would start him. Next up, we move to the Seattle Seahawks, going up against the New England Patriots in New England. So Jacoby Brissett runs like a fucking lunch lady chasing down a kid who stole a cookie. The Patriots are going to want to win games by not having Jacoby Brissett make any mistakes. He's going to be a basically game manager. He's going to run the ball a couple times, and they're just going to try to make sure he doesn't fuck anything up so they could win the games. It's going to be very boring to watch. I wish they would play Drake May, but instead, we have to watch Jacoby Brissett, and they want to win. Again, with him just doing as little as possible, you should never, by any means, play Jacoby Brissett in the year 2024. And if, your fantasy championship is in January, you don't want to start him in 2025 either. Geno had a solid fantasy performance in week one as the quarterback 7 up against the Denver Broncos, whose defense isn't the best. And I do think Geno Smith could end up as a decent fantasy quarterback this week. But nothing will make me want to start him up against the Patriots, even if week one was completely fugazi for the Patriots defense, because the Bengals always reek. In week number 1, I definitely do not feel confident enough to start Geno Smith up against the Patriots. Next up, we got the New York Football Giants up against the left hands up. Who are we? The Commanders. The battle of the Daniels. Jaden Daniels versus Daniel Jones. Jaden Stormy Daniels is going to be a start for me on the week. He came out the gate, first ever NFL start, and he did the FBI open up. He fucking kicked the door down and was the quarterback 3 with 2 rushing touchdowns. The Giants defense couldn't stop mono man Sam Darnold and friends last week from hitting them from the back. How you like that? Hitting them Rocky Balboa style. So Daniels is a must-start quarterback in this game and will be a top 8 quarterback in my rankings. Now, the other Daniel, right? If you have last name Daniels, you're looking good. But if your first name is Daniel, you are no bueno. Daniel Jones scored 6.9 fantasy points at week 1 up against the Vikings. And while the Commanders' defense is softer than a pair of some double D tatas, I will tell you right now that if you start Daniel Jones, there is something wrong with you. I get that the matchup's great. I get that the matchup has a lot of upside, but if you start Daniel Jones, you have a couple of screws loose. Next up, we move to the Los Angeles Chargers at the Carolina Panthers. Now, the Chargers offense last week ran exactly how I thought they would run all offseason long. With Harbaugh at the helm, they want to run the ball gently down the stream and turn Justin Herbert from some gunslinger into a game manager, right? Don't make any bad decisions, make some great short passes, maybe deliver a couple of fucking lasers late in the game, Buzz Lightyear style, but ultimately just keep it safe. Wrap the condom around your team, run the ball, right? And that is great for the Chargers. They're going to win games doing that. But now that means Herbert is really only startable in great matchups like this one, even if he is a bottom of the barrel start this week, in my opinion, because he won't be throwing the ball at a super high rate. I definitely think you should be starting Justin Herbert. Bryce Young. Brycey. How in the world did that happen? I thought Dave Canales was the quarterback whisperer, but Bryce Young looked worse. He looked worse than last season. I will not be playing anyone on the Panthers until further notice. And I won't sit here babbling on about, oh my God, the Carolina Panthers fucking suck dick, right? I'm not going to sit here and just waste my breath talking about this team. Sit them down. Next up, we move to the Cleveland Browns at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Touchdown Jesus Trevor Lawrence was silent like the night when Santa Claus comes in week number 1 up against the Dolphins. 12 of 21 for 161 yards and a tug. Though, with the weapons around him, I do expect things to get better. The Browns defense really has me confused right now, as they didn't look great last week. And I do believe they have a great defense. So I'm a little bit kind of in limbo when it comes to talking about that defense. Lawrence is a mid-tier quarterback too on the week because of the weapons, but I wouldn't love to start him based upon what I saw last week. Deshaun Watson. This fucking pervert bastard, this sicko is a sit. I knew the second I saw that video. A lot of you might have seen it. Some of you might not have seen it. It's an old video where Deshaun Watson has Mia Khalifa over at his house, and Mia Khalifa dunks on him on one of those like mini hoops you attach to your like the top of your door. I had a bunch of those as a kid. You would just fucking slam dunk like your fucking Shaq, okay? And it was super fun, but Deshaun Watson had Mia Khalifa over, and she dunked on him in the videos on the internet. This guy's a sicko. He's a shell of himself. It's over. It's like that meme of Joe Biden where they say it's Jover. It's Jover for Deshaun Watson. I don't think that guy, pause, is in him anymore, right? I don't think he's that same dude he was in Houston. I don't think he ever will be. He used to be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Now he sucks. Now, maybe he figures it out, right? Maybe I'm just wrong. But I don't think he's ever going to figure it out, and I don't even want to even chance him trying to figure it out. He shouldn't even be on your fucking fantasy team. He sucks that bad. Next up, we move to the Las Vegas Raiders at the Baltimore Ravens. Now, Lamar had a great game up against the Chiefs. That could have been even better if, one, he hit Zay Flowers, who was butt booty naked wide open, or if Isaiah Likely had slightly smaller feet against the Raiders defense. There's no doubt in my mind that Lamar Jackson will be anything outside of a top 5 quarterback. He is a lock, stone cold lock to be a top 5 quarterback on the week. Gardner Minshew II looked fine as being able to potentially lead the Raiders to some wins in real life. But against the Ravens in fantasy football, you would have to be huffing some fucking galaxy gas to start Gardner Minshew. Next up, we got the LA Rams at the Arizona Cardinals, which kicks off the late slate of games. Matthew Stafford versus Kyler Murray. Stafford will flirt with a top 12 quarterback ranking, in my opinion, on the week, as the Cardinals defense sucks dong. He was a top 12 quarterback last week up against the Lions in a revenge game and looked great outside of the pick. Even without Puka, I think Stafford's going to put some ass to belt, or belt to ass, I guess is the correct term, up against that Cardinals defense. Kyler looked fine in week 1 up against Buffalo. I expected better, though. This week, I expect him to look better against the Rams as they just try to get Marvin Harrison more involved, as he was basically a dud out there. The Rams defense is solid, but Kyler's a guy with quarterback 1 upside in any matchup due to his rushing upside. Top 8 quarterback for sure on the week for me. Next up, we got the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Denver Broncos. Justin Fields is expected to be the starter, according to Mike Tomlin. Last week, he played a decent game. Now, with another week of practice being the 1, he should get a high-end quarterback 2 ranking. I know the Steelers don't have a great allotment, a great arsenal at the wide receiver position surrounding Justin Fields. They have George Pickens and a bunch of bums. But due to the fact that he can run in multiple touchdowns in any game, run for 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 yards, makes me confident that you should list him as a start. Now, is he safe? Of course not. But up against the Broncos, there's a lot more safety that comes because this is a wet dream matchup. Bo Nix ran into the end zone to make his not-so-hot day look better, but in all reality, Bo Nix didn't look good. After one game, I'm not going to sit here and write off Bo Nix's career and say after one NFL start, you suck, buddy. You're done, right? But didn't look good. It did not look good. Overall, Nix shouldn't be rostered in one quarterback league. So if you're in a one quarterback league, drop him like it's hot. And I don't think his coming out party will happen this week up against the Steelers, but it is definitely going to come in the future. Next up, we move to the Cincinnati Bengals going up against the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, realistically, I don't want to touch Joe Burrow with a 10-foot pole. Joe Shiesty, Joe Burr, Slim Shiesty did not look good at all up against the Patriots. The man was the quarterback 29 last week. Quarterback 29. On paper, this has all of the making of a bounce-back game. But we know historically, Joe Burrow and the Bengals are slow starters. They come out the gate ice cold, and then they heat up when it matters. Normally, he does play good up against the Kansas City Chiefs. To me, he is a lower-end start on the week and won't be ranked inside of my top 12. Would I be surprised if he had a top 12 game? Of course not. I wouldn't even be surprised if he was a top 5 quarterback. But with them ramping up Jamar Chase further, with T. Higgins potentially not playing, I just think it is far from an ideal start as of right now. Patrick Mahomes, Kermit the Frog, outside of that, INT looked sharp against the Ravens on opening night, 291 passing yards and a touchdown. With 10 days to prepare for the Bengals, I expect Mahomes to look even better in this game. Next up, we move to, cause you waited all day for Sunday night, the Chicago Bears at the Houston Texans. Caleb Williams looked more ass than a Megan Thee Stallion music video. And unlike Tory Lanez, Caleb Williams couldn't shoot straight because Caleb Williams went 14 of 29 for 93 yards with 3.2 yards per attempt. Now, do I think that we should just abandon our initial diagnosis on Caleb Williams, which is that he's a really fucking good quarterback? Of course not. Of course not. But up against the Texans, I'm not going to get cute and roll him out there. CJ Stroud was cooking in week 1 against the Colts, over 230 passing yards, 2 tugs, no INTs. Stroud should be at minimum a top 10 quarterback in good matchups, which this is, and I believe he will be exactly that this week. Final matchup here, we move to Monday Night Football, the Atlanta Falcons at the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, I'm not going to write off Kirk Cousins after one down game against TJ Watt and the Steelers, but this is a primetime game, right? And that's a big but. Shout out to Bella Danger, because Kirk in prime time, no bueno. Not good at all. Kirk is notoriously bad in prime time, so I'm going to stay away from him for now. Might take some time for him to get adjusted with the torn Achilles. He wasn't stepping right. He wasn't positioning his body right. He was throwing the ball open instead of, actually setting his fucking feet like you're supposed to. Now, I'm not some quarterback whisperer, right? I'm not Peyton Manning, right? And I get it. Like, I might not be the best quarterback analyst on earth in terms of how you actually fucking position your body. But I do know one thing, though. Women, they come, they go. I do know one thing, though. The positioning of his body on a lot of those throws were shocking. He wasn't planting his feet. His feet are like up in the air. His legs are positioned all wrong. So hopefully Kirk figures that out. But as of right now, not going to be starting Kirk Cousins. Jalen Hurts definitely looks spotty, like a fucking Dalmatian up against the Packers in Brazil. Even with a not-so-hot performance, though, he was still a top 10 quarterback on the week. If Hurts can limit the interceptions, maybe not fall over a bunch like he did in Brazil because the field was all messed up, shake off some of the bad plays, I have no doubt that Hurts could still be a top 3 quarterback in fantasy, and he will be ranked inside of the top 3 on the week for me. So thank you guys all so much for watching today's video. If you did end up enjoying, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button like it owes you some money. While you're down there, make sure you guys leave a like on today's video as well. It would help me out a ton. Check out Underdog Fantasy, promo code Notorious, or click on the link in the video description to claim your free pick like Josh Allen higher than half a total yard. If you're watching this after Thursday Night Football, there will be a different one that you receive, plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Love you guys all so much. Hope you have a great run. Check out one of the videos on your screen if you haven't seen them already. Good boy!